Welcome to Halas Hall Report, live every Saturday night at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time and Sunday mornings at 11:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. Live talking Chicago Bears football with Mike the Bear Fan. And your host, Ken Dobb. Also on the panel, we have the football analyst, Woody, who is named for the Woody wrap-up on game days. Next on the panel, we have Bear Down Mike. He is the youngest, but don't be fooled. This guy knows this Bear squad. He can bring a different insight. Halas Hall Report breaks down the Chicago Bears team all year long, from the offseason through the draft. Also, the legend of tailgating, Billy Defense Flores, joins the crew live at 1st and 10 tailgating. You can find him at all home games at Soldiers Field. Also, the Bear Fan, who has been here since the first year of Halas Hall Report, welcome Bear Fan Dan, where he is known for studs and duds after every game. You can find them on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Roku if you have a TV. They are all over social media. You won't find no better sources for Chicago Bears news like injury reports, team updates for breaking news for all the good and the bad the team does. Halas Hall Report will be live for the 6th season. And they are teaming up with the best sports podcast out on social media.
This is Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good evening, Roku. Good evening, Facebook. Good evening, YouTube. Welcome to the Saturday night edition of Halas Hall Report. A little bit of a special show tonight. We've got Bear Down Mike. Good evening, Mike.
Good evening.
We've got my Monday through Friday partner in crime, Ken Packerbacker News. How you doing, Ken?
Oh, not too bad. How are you tonight?
Getting there, surviving the game. A beautiful, not so beautiful Saturday down here in Florida. It was raining and cold. But then again, for cold, that's 50 degrees for me. Then from Skull Nation, D-Roy is in the house. D-Roy is about to start his own show as well, coming up in the future. Good evening, D-Roy. How you doing tonight?
Pretty good, man.
And of course, as always, working the board in the background, the man with the skills to flip stuff around, share it, put up your comments, and do everything else producer-wise, Mike the Bear Fan. All right, fellas. So, hey, going to start tonight off. There's a lot of Bears. We actually are the only team really in the NFL, the Bears are, that have some actual news. But the first piece of actual news we got in the offseason, I'm going to throw up, is probably not all that great of news, but actually not terrible either. Steve McMichael he was rushed to the emergency room the other day. Here's an update from the McMichael family. We wish him well. He's been fighting this for a while, long while. He's a fighter, man. So right now, as you can see, he's getting blood transfusions and has MRSA. So hopefully the doctors can do their thing, and he will carry on. That, of course, message being from Jared Payton, who talks to the family quite a bit. So yeah, a little bit of good news, bad news, I guess. He's doing better, but he's not well.
So, all the prayers to the McMichael family. Hope he gets better.
Yeah, my thoughts and prayers also go out to the family.
Yeah, it's rough to hear stuff like that going on with them. And like I've talked about with Ken the Bear Fan on our show, I remember him from his wrestling days too. So even with that, here's hope that the Four Horseman gets it better. Well.
Yeah, that's the somber news on the Bears front. Now some will say good, some will say bad. This happened this week. Eddie Jackson, cut by the Bears, released. He is definitely a cut of financial need, if you will. Here are his stats. So Mike, Bear Fan Mike, I mean, what do you think about this so far with the stats? And if it's in black, those are lows, right? I think it's black or highs. Red or lows for the team.
Right. Well, he definitely was one of the big pieces of this defense from that 2018 team. He's the last member of that squad. It's just been a downhill ever since he got injured. You can see that 2020 is the last time he was any decent. Other than that, it was a cap casualty. Nothing to do with him as a player, but it's all business.
Now, Ken, I know we talked about it for a split second yesterday on the morning show, but do you think there's any interest coming out of your camp with you having a need for a guy like him, or having no one there right now?
You're getting some fans and some articles linking them together, but personally, I wouldn't go for bringing him to Green Bay just because of his age. We're getting a lot younger as a team, and he does not fit the mold. Not saying he was this horrible player, but he's just not for us.
Yeah, and D-Roy, I don't know if he's a fit anywhere else in the division. I don't think he'd fit in for what you guys are doing up there in Minnesota either. I mean, you guys
No.
have your own cap issues to deal with. You can't look to be buying
Right.
anyone right now, right?
Yeah, no. Our biggest concern right now is quarterback and whether or not Kirk stays or goes. Personally, I want Kirk to go because I want Hunter back.
Oh yeah, we'll get to Daniil Hunter later. That'll be a good conversation we're going to have with that.
I can
For,
definitely see Eddie in Detroit.
was it now?
Oh, I'm sorry, Ken. I was gonna say Detroit could use Eddie Jackson because that secondary is not the best, and with a veteran presence, that would probably actually work out for them.
And they already have a former Bear there, a guy whose name we do not say on our program much because it's considered a curse word on the Halas Hall report. We'll say it starts with a V and ends with a door.
Yeah,
So
I'm not
if they
saying
want, because all of a sudden Woody will come out of nowhere and we'll hear something like this. So we need to stay away from those curse words on this show. Jackson, you're right. He could maybe make an impact in Detroit, but Detroit's so full of themselves right now as a base, thinking that they're going to win the Super Bowl next year because they won a playoff game for the first time in 32 years. You know what? Let them take Eddie Jackson. Let them pay him $4 or $5 million. Of course, some of their fans say, "Well, we can get him for the veteran minimum." Those guys don't sign. You'd think certain fans would figure out by now. Players don't sign for the minimum. They really don't. Not a guy like Eddie Jackson who just came off an $18 million deal. No, he's not signing for the league minimum. You're going to pay that guy $2 or $3 or $4 or $5 million easy. But we need a safety. So Bears wise, here's the free agent list. Here's some safeties NFL. Bear down, Mike. Which one of these guys would you? I think I already know, but let me know which one of these guys would you want and why.
I'm definitely interested in the Anton Winfield. That Buccaneers defense was something else, and I think he'd be a great impact player in the backfield for us.
And all of these guys, except for Buda Baker, kind of fit the age area that Foles likes to sign guys at. But you think 5 years, $92 million, so $18.5 a year. He's obviously the most expensive of them. Ken Packer version. Which one of these guys, if you were looking to build a team, would you want?
See, Stone fits in with our age, and I like his production. But I really like Buda Baker, even though he's older. If we could get him, I would not be against it. But Stone would probably be the guy that we would target out of those guys listed.
Yeah, and I think it'd be fair to say that for any of the teams that are in the division or the three teams represented here today, I think there could be a case for every single one of these players for every single one of the teams. D-Roy, you guys are pretty decent in the secondary, but once again though, if you were had to take one of these guys, who would you take?
Xavier McKinley all day. His presence in the deep secondary, that the way that dude can just snag the ball and his pass defense is superior.
Yeah, for me, I'm going with Anton Winfield Jr. There's going to be a theme for that, as you'll see later on in upcoming shows in the year to come. I like Winfield Jr. though. I'll throw him back up again. Look at the red there is where he led of the free agents. If it's in red, that means he's the top of the free agents that are listed. So last year, most QB hits, more fumble recoveries, more forced fumbles. He loves that peanut punch. He's a student of the peanut punch. He can tackle. So you put him back there with JJ and Brisker. I'm rolling with the young guy all day at 5 years and 92. He's 25. He's right. He's actually a year or two younger than what Poles might normally sign because mostly he gets 26, 27-year-olds. So, by the time you see depreciation around 30, if you structure the contract right, the hit's not going to be that bad, and you'll be able to cut him if you need to. I think he's solid, would be a solid addition. You could take basically the money you just got back from Eddie Jackson and spend it on Winfield, and there you go. Problem solved, maybe. The other guy we cut. Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
Also on that list, you got to remember Geno Stone only played half the year. With 8 interceptions, only playing half the year. If you double almost everything else for playing the full year, that is a great pick. I'm kind of glad Ken said that.
Yeah, that was kind of why I was alluding to him, and especially with how Goody likes to target these mid to lower range market guys and get massive production out of them. That's why I think that would be the choice for us.
Right, and I was thinking it's the same exact thing, for Bears' perspective too.
So I like Winfield Jr. because if you add a Winfield Jr. with a certain receiver junior that we're going to draft, or I think we're going to draft, you see how I'm getting the theme there. But look, Stone is a great value money wise. What, $7 million a year? I mean, if you can get the production out of him, I agree with you, Mike. I just went with John Dorn, of course, Xavier McKinney. What would Dorn do? Dorn would go with Xavier McKinney at basically, $10 million a year.
I wouldn't argue with
Go
him.
ahead. Go ahead. I'll go next.
I was just saying with Dorn going for McKinney that I wouldn't argue with that either. I'd be more than happy with him too. All right, you can go ahead.
So if you're going to go after the most expensive guy, Antoine, that means you're drafting an edge rusher. We don't have money to pour all over on that defense. We have to put some on the offense as well. So
that's
bang for the buck, Geno Stone. If you're going to get an edge, if you're going to sign an edge rusher, because Bears been linked to the Danielle Hunter. So,
and we've got a Lion fan joining us on the show. I want to welcome Darcy to the show. Good evening, Darcy. Hey, we released Eddie Jackson. We released Eddie Jackson. Yeah, I like the shirt. Are we gonna? Hey, are we? We released Eddie Jackson. Is he gonna be patrolling the backfield there in Detroit now? Are you guys gonna go sign Eddie Jackson?
Well, you know what? It's funny, Ken. I am Darcy. It's funny, Ken, that we are talking about Chicago Bears and the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings, but the truth of the matter. The truth of the matter is, I think the Chicago Bears are going to be elite. What happens if they trade Justin Fields to the Commanders? What are you going to get again? You got the first pick. You got the 9th pick. You're already reloading. You won most of your last games. You mollywopped Detroit. You mollywopped Detroit. That went to the NFC Conference Final, right?
Well, Darcy, I get what you're saying, Darcy, but we're not talking about that right now. We're talking specifically about Eddie Jackson, who the Bears cut this week and is now a free agent. And, well, your backfield could use some help back there. So is Eddie Jackson a guy that Detroit, and I'll throw his numbers up for you in case you missed it, is Eddie Jackson a guy, that you might look to sign for $4 or $5 million a season?
Well, Eddie Jackson plays safety, does he not?
Yep.
Do we need another safety on this team? We're already signing C.J. Gardner-Johnson to a long-term contract, or probably 2 or 3 years. It's already in the books. Why would we are a grit team. Why would we want to do that? You guys are
so that would be a no then. So that'd be a no. You're just not going to – I mean, that's all I'm looking – we're looking – I mean, so Eddie Jackson probably not in Detroit. So, Eddie Jackson could also – here's something, fellas, to think about. Eddie Jackson could just be done. It's not unheard of. Look at Des White. Des White gets cut by the Cowboys a few years back. Never plays another down in the NFL. So I mean, players do when they become casualty cuts or cap casualties. sometimes that's it. That's career, night over. So that was one. And here's another guy who could be in that same boat. Cody Whitehair, longtime Bear, right? I'm going to go through a couple of Whitehair things before I turn it over to you guys. First, I'm going to show you what Cody said to Bears fans. You know, great way to exit. And Eddie Jackson did something similar, but you know, Cody was kind of like the heartbeat of the organization for a little bit. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So he gave a great send off to the Bears organization, the fans, and look at here's the numbers over a guy who played any position you ever wanted to play in the line whenever you wanted to play it. You know, and we cut him because he was a cap casualty. You know, Bear Down Mike, I mean, what were your thoughts on the Bears cutting Whitehair, and do you think Whitehair will sign on somewhere else?
He was a cap casualty. Everybody, the locker room loved that guy. He's a pro bowler. You know, it's unfortunate. You know, he was a cap casualty. And as far as going to another team, you know, we've seen other offensive linemen we've cut in the past go and be great somewhere else. So I see him staying in the league for maybe a year or two. Now, what team? I don't know what team.
Yeah, well, probably won't be the Packers, so I'll go to Ken next. I know the Packers don't have a need for Whitehair, but what do you think about the Whitehair being cut from Chicago and his future somewhere else in the league?
Yeah, unfortunately, like you guys were alluding to, he was a cap casualty for you. That you guys apparently seem to really like him, and your players liked him. But I can see him bouncing around the league for another couple of years because he's still serviceable. But like you had already said, I wouldn't want him for us just because we grow linemen in the backfield.
Yeah, for those that don't know, like somewhere in the cornfields of Wisconsin, there's a field that they grow linebacker. They don't grow linebackers; they grow offensive and defensive linemen. They just grow them, but they have more success with growing O linemen than D linemen. But I swear they have a field back there, some farmer tilling the fertile land to break up another. The next Bakhtiari is in their wings. But
and that next Bakhtiari is Rasheed Walker.
There you go. See, now, Roy, though, I mean, you guys have had offensive line issues in Minnesota. Yep. I mean, look how much Kirk got hit. Could Cody Whitehair be an answer for you guys, or a guy that, hey, if I can get him for $4 or $5 million, I'd love to have him on this O line?
Oh yeah, we're losing potentially Dalton Renzer, who came in and was serviceable when he was here. So, I mean, I wouldn't mind having him.
Yeah, for you guys, I think right now for the Vikings, everything revolves around cap, right? And right now, I think you guys are $3 million over. Or no, the Packers are $3 million over, but I think you guys are pretty close too. So it's gonna be some hard decisions on how do you fill holes. Now, Darcy, I know Darcy, you don't need Cody Whitehair. You've already got the best offensive line probably in the division. But what do you think? Do you think Cody Whitehair will end up somewhere else?
Ken, I'm sitting here watching on Roku TV about 10-second delay. I can't believe Darren Ryan has a green screen. Ken, you're doing great. I got I'm on my phone. That's usually not, and I can hear my wife in the background. But this is great. Everybody subscribe to Roku TV. What is the thing? This is great. I love it. I will come on. Ken, every time we're going to have a show. Oh, I'm seeing myself now. Look at that. There you go.
Darcy sees himself on TV, and all of a sudden.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks. I'll come on again.
Anytime. Oh, Darcy's left the building. Darcy's always brother. A pleasure having you. For those who don't know, Darcy has some Lion shows he does. He is a Lion fan through and through. So hopefully we'll see Darcy. He didn't have to leave, but I know they don't need Cody Whitehair in Detroit either. So there's a free agent. Now look at that creates issues for us in Chicago, right? After the cuts in Chicago, this is where we're at. We saved 21.7. 66.9 is where we're at with cap space. That number seems to be fluctuating a little bit from day to day, depending whether you're looking at PFF, SPO-Track, above the cap. But we're right at about that 66.9. And as Ken and I talked about yesterday, if teams need more, GMs find ways to work that magic, not pixie dust, but cap dust, because like the
Mhm.
Packers are $3 million over right now. They'll
Oh yeah,
find a way.
yeah. With Rust Ball running our cap, I have no worries whatsoever about our cap situation. He finds
So
ways to pull it out.
so
Well,
the Bears are
we moved in the third spot. That's what made it kind of interesting.
yeah.
Like, what move are they gonna make? What big move are they gonna make? And if you watched us before, numerous people on this panel literally said Eddie Jackson and Cody Whitehair would be released.
Yeah, well, there was. I know I mentioned that there could have been a possibility of a restructure for Whitehair. I think all of us said pretty much Eddie Jackson was gone. I would say I said that Eddie Jackson would not be gone if they weren't going to do something. If there was no need to cut him for cap, um, but obviously there's something in the works. One of the things that's probably going to be in the works is we got to get a center. Now I'm in the camp that we can get him through the draft, but here's some free agent centers. We have featured I think Connor before, right? Connor is from the Titans, right? Um, we featured no, that was Aaron Brewers from the Titans. We talked about him a few weeks ago. Bear down, Mike, of this center list, if we're signing one via free agency, let me put twofold. One, would you sign a free agent center versus the draft? And if you're signing a free agent center, which one of these guys would you take for the Bears?
If I'm signing a center, I'm gonna go with Nick Algoretti. $3 million per year, 3 years, $9 million. The pass blocking is what we're looking for. We already have a great run offense. It also depends on what we're taking in the draft. If we're sticking with Justin, we could take a center in the draft. If we're having a rookie quarterback, we cannot have a rookie center. So if we're sticking with Justin and we're using that scenario, I'm taking Nick Algoretti.
Well, I kind of agree with everything except for the end there. You got to remember, Nick backs up one of the best centers in the league in KC, so he hasn't had a whole lot of playing time. But when he does play, he's great, just like Jenkins. But he's got other issues. He's got to stay healthy because he's
Well,
been
then the injury issue won't be an issue. Injury history, not a
no.
problem.
But I think they pick one up in free agency and possibly draft one.
Correct.
I mean,
Yeah, they should.
that's
They
always
still needs to draft a center in the draft.
and that's always possible too. I mean, it depends what we're looking at money wise. Like the thing about Nick Alleghetti, and I'll take a stab. The thing about Nick Alleghetti is Foles knows this guy because he dealt with him when he was with KC, so he already knows the talent there. And I think if Foles signs Alleghetti, that's him saying, "I know something." Like I know this guy's better than what you guys think he is because I know why I got him in the first place in Kansas City, and he's the same deal. Uh, Dorn is right though. I mean, Ken, you can't go
You can
cheap
keep
on
on
the
the
O line.
line.
Oh hell no! You see the money that we invested in Bakhtiari when he was healthy. You want to spend on that old line because you want to make sure your quarterback's staying upright. The more time he's got standing, usually the better things are going to turn out.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying the only reason I would think we would go with the cheaper option being Alleghetti is because Foles is like, I know he's worth more than that. I can get a $10 million, $15 million a year value for 7 because of the
Mm,
situation he's coming from.
yeah,
That
pulling
that
with the booty stuff.
In Ken, with you guys in the Packers, you paid Bakhtiari all this money, but he's injured consistently.
Well, he got paid all that money before he had that freak ACL tear that's turned into an absolute nightmare.
Right.
There's
and
a lot of Packers fans that'll tell you that we want to cut him this offseason.
Right.
and it's
I
ironic.
agree with Dorn, don't go cheap on the O line, but at the same time, like I think they're gonna make a splash elsewhere than that center position. I think they
And,
get
and
an
we're
offensive lineman as well.
we're going to hit that there in a second too, or at least where we're going to spend some more money. But Mike, it's funny that you wandered into that because Ken and I were talking about Bakhtiari for about a half hour yesterday,
Yep.
and why he's probably going to get cut in Green Bay, and part of it being they get $18 million in cap relief. They'll be 18 million in the positive by cutting them, I think is what we said. Um, so, but when they signed Bakhtiari, though, he was worth the penny. And when he played in week 1 last year, he was worth the penny in week 1. Unfortunately, he got hurt and had to go or went back down. But according to Bakhtiari, at least, this is a good thing about doing the show with Packer fans every day. According to Packer fans, Bakhtiari actually, he did the surgery that's supposed to be the clean all. So if this is the surgery he just had this last season that cleaned him up, that's where the Packers are going to have to make a decision. But so paying these guys big money is not necessarily a bad thing. And hey, as we go on, I want to welcome an old buddy of mine I've known for, we're coming up on 2 decades here. Big time Vikings fan, Rob Haspels. Welcome to the show, brother. Do you guys want Cody Whitehair? We just released him. You want a good lineman? He's good, just not what we were paying him good.
Well, I mean, my opinion, we definitely should move on from Garrett Bradbury at center, and I'm not a big fan of Ed Ingram at right guard. What do you think he's going to get in free agency for salary?
I haven't looked at Spotrac because it's weird. The day they're cut, it's like their market value disappears. We'll have to wait a couple days. But let's say you pay him. We cut him. He was on $8 or $9 million this year. So let's say you can get him for about 4 or 5. This is a guy that, as Bears fans, the 3 Bears fans, you will say we loved him as a Bear. He's a Swiss Army knife. Can play any position you want on the line. Went to the Pro Bowl as a center a few years back. So yeah, I'll pop up his numbers for you. Take a gander.
I've actually always been a fan of the guy's work on the field. I know he's getting a little long in the tooth and whatnot. I've always been a fan of the effort that he's put in and the results that he's had. Even in the years where you guys had a lot of your offensive line was rather suspect, I always thought he was like the one solidifying piece and definitely took on a leadership role in that group. I'd be fine with having him. I just, right now, I don't know how we're going to pay for needing to bring back the guys we do need to bring back once you give Justin Jefferson his, what's likely to be a record-setting contract here too. So
he's going to reset the market for the wide receiver.
Yeah, he's looking at.
For sure. For sure.
So that Whitehair, I don't know if he ends up in the division, but from Bears Nation, Cody, thank you so much for the time you spent in a Bears uniform, being willing to play any position asked of you, no matter what the situation, never saying no. He had that attitude of, hey, whatever you need, I'm going to go in there and do it. And it's tough to see good players like them go, but business is business. And the Bears are looking to spend some money. I think this is where the big splash is, gents. Free agent edge rushers. I mean, we need someone to go on the other side of the ball with Montez Sweat. Bear down, Mike. I see a name on the top of that list that 2 other members of this panel are going, oh, hell no, you can't have them. But what do you think of this list, and who would you spend the money on?
I really like Danielle Hunter. That Danielle Hunter name, man, that player with Montez Sweat on the other side is very enticing. Chase Young scares me. Josh Allen would be great. I don't think we're gonna pay that much. I love the age. I love everything about Josh Allen. Brian Burns, I think he's gonna get franchise tagged. Jonathan Gennard, you can see in the stats right there, he wasn't top of anything, but Danielle Hunter's the guy. I'm going with him.
Ken?
Well, I'm going to say you guys should sign just the first person you come across down the street now.
Who's the guy you least want to face lined up with Montez Sweat as a Green Bay Packer?
Well, the glaring obvious answer is Danielle Hunter. But Chase Young, I wouldn't want to face either, just because of all the time that he's spent with Montez Sweat over with the Commanders. But at that time, I'm not too worried about either of them, just because of our tackles that we got now.
So D-Roy, I know you got something to say here, because I know you probably want to keep Danielle. What say you?
I mean, the best option to go with would be Danielle Hunter, obviously. But I mean, if you're looking at someone who's young, I'd go Josh Allen.
Yeah, the money there on Josh Allen, let me bring it back up real quick. Thank you, Mike. The money on Josh Allen is probably going to be 23.9 on average compared to 20 for Daniil. Chase Young's at 13, the cheapest, probably because it's more injury prove it. And the other two, 21 and 13. Daniil at 20 million a year. I mean, he's old, but he's not old for where the Bears are sitting right now. I think looking for the future. Rob, what about you? I mean, look at let's say for whatever reason you can't have Daniil Hunter because Quezzy can't figure out the money situation for him, and you're of these guys on this list, who do you want to not? Who would you not want to see staring down whoever the quarterback ends up being in Minnesota?
Well, to be honest, Daniil Hunter, and we've talked throughout the season on this podcast, that podcast, Daniil Hunter's the one I always projected that we would not be able to outbid somebody for, especially after the numbers he put up this year. He was playing because he knew he was going to be getting a contract from somebody, and I feel like he's going to be the number one edge rusher in the market. You guys have the money. I definitely don't want to see a front where you have Daniil Hunter and Montez Sweat coming at you. I was actually, I want to rewind just a bit back to when you guys got Montez Sweat before the trade deadline and everything. I was honestly, before you guys pulled that move, kind of thinking in the back of my head, not out loud necessarily, that, we're probably not going to be able to afford Daniil Hunter. We should try and get Montez Sweat from the Reds or the Commanders. And then you guys got him. And then I got to thinking, I'm like, well, crap, what if they come in with all this money and just, $10 million more a year than what the Viking, or $10 million more period, than what the Vikings could afford to give Daniil. I said that, we could be looking at facing both of them next year. Of the people that we're talking about, we'd like to bring back, which would be, the top two would be Kirk Cousins and Daniil Hunter. I think Daniil Hunter's the most likely to walk of the two of them. And to be honest, there's a good chance neither of them could come back. So, but I almost, when he went out and had one of his best years last year, I kind of knew the writing was on the wall on that. And I knew that one of the teams in the division could get him. I know I've seen some of the Lions fans talk, and they'd be heavily interested, in bringing him up there for a year or two, with the outfit that they've got going with Aiden Hutchinson and some of those other guys they got in their line.
Yeah, I don't think there's a team in the division who would be unhappy adding Daniil Hunter. Even Packer fans, they're like, oh, you cut Bakhtiari, but you signed Daniil Hunter. Yes, they would be happy, probably even in Green Bay.
Right.
Ken's shaking his head no.
I honestly wouldn't want Daniil Hunter just because of what we already have on the roster. We just spent a first-round pick on a pass rusher. We already have the monster in Gary, and you got Preston Smith still on the team. So, to me, that would be wasted money. Not saying he's not a phenomenal player. It would just be wasted money to me.
Yeah, but are you guys gonna keep Preston Smith though?
That's a contention point. I wouldn't be upset if we moved on from him, but I would like him back. But Van Ness has shown enough to where if we move on, I think Van Ness is ready to take a nice leap.
So, Mike, the Bear fan, where do you sit, brother? I mean, I know you've got a point of view on this.
Yeah, I've been along with Chase Young to bring back, with Sweat. I just feel like the cheaper option, give them a little incentives and 10, 13 mil per year.
Yeah, I think when you look at the puzzle, like depending on how much money you spend, if you spend at center, depending on how much money you spend, if you spend on safety, 60 million, and you've got to get JJ probably 20 of that. So how are you going to split out? What are you looking at draft? I think edge, though, you need that big edge. You're going to have to sign someone. And I think Daniil is probably choice A if money fits the schedule. But if money doesn't fit the schedule, then plan B, which is the plan that I called out at the trade deadline when we got Montez Sweat, I said, watch, the 49ers won't re-sign him, and then we're going to pick him up, and we're going to reunite the two in Chicago. And it could happen. It could very well happen. You know, he had a sack in the Super Bowl. I watched him throughout the Super Bowl. He looked like he played really well. He didn't overcommit. He made pressure. He got the sack. I would love to see that combo in Chicago, especially with Gervin coming alive, Jones getting better. That front four in Chicago is going to be looking, that front line in Chicago is going to be looking really good with any of these guys if we sign edge. And I think it'll tell you a way the Bears are looking with the draft, like with the number 9 pick. Because originally I had us drafting edge at 9, but I don't think we are drafting edge at 9 if we sign one of these guys. I think we're going at safety or corner if we don't. Because like I said, if we don't, whatever we don't sign in free agency, be the safety or an edge, that's where we're going. But I think it's easier to get the value on safety at 9 than it is edge.
Well, you got to remember too. Yeah, we have the third highest to spend this year, but they made money for a reason. I believe they're going to pay Jaylon Johnson, so that's a decent chunk right there. And plus we need other needs: center, edge, another safety now. So I mean, there's other needs, and that money gets chewed up when you're spending $20 million just like that, especially when you got the best corner to point at first, in my view. That's why I went with Chase Young, went with the cheaper, younger. Not saying they're not the best at the position, but they can definitely produce, because look at Chase Young. He can produce.
And the thing too, Mike, is you got all the miscellaneous $1 million here, $1 million here guys. You've got your long snapper you're going to re-sign for 1.5 a year. You've got a tight end, and Mercedes Lewis, who if he doesn't retire, you're going to re-sign for $1 million, and he's worth every penny of it. Because not only is he a good blocker, but he's a coach, a mentor to guys like Cole Kmet. So you've got all that miscellaneous. So you probably factor out of $65 million, about $15 million of that is going to all these miscellaneous signings that we need to do. And then you're going to spend 20 of it on Jaylon Johnson. So that gives you about maybe 20 million-ish to, spread between a center and an edge rusher. So it's Danielle Hunter and no center, or maybe you take, or maybe you go and get right here. You go get Chase Young for 13, and then you spend 7 or so on Allegretti. And actually, if you go with Allegretti, that saves you even more money. Where you
look at the skull rejects in here, all these skull tards in here, ready to fucking pump their team up, which they know are going to be shit, especially that loser up there, fucking Rob Haspels. Oh, he left. Bye, Rob.
Well, that's a way to bring yourself onto a show. Run Rob off the show.
No problem. Fuck Rob. Fuck Rob Haspels and his stupid ass opinions and everything else like that. That's the main person. Listen, man. I respect the show and I respect everything else like that. But at the end of the day, man, come on, we got to talk realistic stats, facts, and everything else like that. And I'm sorry, some of these skull people are just way out of pocket with their stats and facts. They're just way out of line. And Rob's the biggest one of them all.
So I'm not going to take a crap on my battle buddy, because I served with the man in Iraq, and I know Rob better than any of y'all do.
I'm Army infantry. I'm Army infantry. You can be my battle buddy right now, bud.
What I'm saying is, okay, let me rephrase this. I was his commanding officer in Iraq, so I've known him for almost 2 decades. So I'm not going to take a bath on him there. Rob's a good guy. He speaks from the heart, and he does a lot within the school community and the school fan base. So I get what you're saying. Though you don't like where he's coming from on the stat line.
No, but it's the whole fan base, the whole skull tard fan base. They just are delusional. They get together. They all spew the same crap about their team. We all know the Vikings are going to finish in the basement come up next season, period. The Bears are going to finish way better than them. The Vikings are lucky that they didn't finish that this year, on accountability of they beat the Bears one more time than what they thought.
So, now we've got all 4 teams. Look, I think this is a division. I've said it on the morning show with Ken. This is a division where 10 wins could find you in the basement this year. And I say that because if the Vikings can figure out their quarterback situation, they're still a capable team They've shown they can be capable to be a 10-win team.
They don't have the money. They don't have the money.
Well, like I said, okay, but like I said, if they can find a way, and GMs, as Ken and I talk about in the morning show, always seem to find a way to sprinkle that magic dust on the salary cap. If they find a way, they're my wild card, is what I'm saying. The Vikings are the wild card, and what's saying you could have, in theory, you could have a division this year where 10 wins finds you in the basement. That's pretty
No,
scary
I
when you
don't
look
think
at
the
this
Vikings.
division.
I don't think the Vikings are close to a wild card. Your wild card is going to be either Detroit or the Packers because the Packers are so up and coming right now with Jordan Love and everything. I think they're on the right track. I mean, could the North maybe put 3 teams in there? Could be a possibility, but at the end of the day, right now it looks like Detroit and the Packers are the top front runners of the NFC North right now, in my opinion.
Next season is going to be tougher on Detroit and Packers.
That's
Oh yeah. Oh, I can't wait for those games.
It's going to be 10 times harder.
It's going to be super intense.
Oh yeah, they're going to be very good games that we're having for the next couple years.
I mean, look at.
I'm looking forward to it.
Let me take the Vikings out of the discussion here for me. I'm sorry, D-Roy, but you're my wild card team. But let me talk about my known quantities, right? I know that with Chicago, who's trending up. I know with Detroit that trended up, won the division. I know with the Packers that overperformed and are trending up this last season. You've got 3 teams now where you've got legit with the Bears, a top 5 defense. With Detroit, they're in that top half defense. With Green Bay, they're moving towards that top half defense. Offensively, all 3 teams have a lot of weaponry to go with, right? So all 3, you're not. I don't think any one of those 3 teams is sweeping out the division. It's just not happening.
No.
Now, when I talk about, when I add in the Vikings, right? The Vikings are a quagmire, and I didn't say call them a wild card as in a wild card playoff team. Their wild card is because they're the great unknown, right? And this is where D-Roy, maybe you can chime in after I get done here and give me some clarification. We all know that they've got salary cap issues, but we all know salary cap issues don't mean jack because GMs always find a way around it.
Oh, you always find a way around to bury money.
So, D-Roy, I mean, what I look at for you guys, you're big, obviously you got to re-sign the best receiver in the league. Got it. You have a quarterback issue and maybe a defensive line issue at best. Let's say you can solve those decently, right? With guys who are serviceable. More importantly, spending maybe money on quarterback. I could see you guys still as an 8 to 10 win team next year. What about you?
I'd say 8-9 wins. I mean, go pick up like a serviceable quarterback like Russell Wilson. I mean, Denver still owes him money, so they're paying him. Then you go draft a quarterback to sit behind him, let him learn and develop, and then I'd say get somebody. If we end up losing Danielle Hunter, draft somebody, edge rusher, and then I'd say get another corner.
I mean, that could be what you, because where do you pick in the first round? You're what, mid
11?
11. You can get a good edge rusher at 11. That's going to be impact right away.
I'm eyeing either Verse or I'm going at Chop Robinson.
I mean, what's your thoughts on Derek? I mean, as far as Kirk Cousins go, he's not going to take you to the promised land. So what's your thoughts on?
He's gone.
Yep, I thought so too. Sure. So what are you going to do in the meantime? Are you going to sign a Russell Wilson type, or are you going to try to get somebody in the draft that's going to? I mean, are you guys in total rebuild mode?
I just said that. I just said I'd take a serviceable quarterback like Russell Wilson on like a 1 year
out
deal.
there.
Dude.
I'm done with Mitch Trubisky. That's waste management.
We know Mitch is out there, and the thing with Russ that's interesting, and we'll see if it happens. I think it's got to happen within the next week or so because if it hit a certain date in March, I think Russ gets money from Denver.
Yeah, Denver's got to swallow that contract.
Yeah,
well, that's it. So they're going to eat $85 million.
Yeah, they're
$85 million in dead cap. So I mean, so D-Roy, let's say they eat $85 million. First off, I don't know. Does anyone here think that they will not eat the $85 million? That Denver was like, no way, you're all smoking crack. There's no way Denver's eating $85 million in dead cap. Does anyone here think that?
No, Denver's definitely going to eat
They're going
85
to eat
million.
it.
Period.
They're done
Yeah,
with
they're
Russ.
eating it.
Th-
They're
This
eating
is
it.
They
where
only
done
have
with
24
this is
million.
where this
Done
is where
with them.
this is where Minnesota's going to come in and say, okay, we'll give you I don't know, 26 million towards it, and then you eat the rest, and we'll take the rest on and get rid of Kirk Cousins in the
Well,
process.
they don't have to eat.
I mean, even Denver might even think, hey, we'll trade you. We'll take Kirk Cousins. You can have Russell Wilson.
You can't. No, Kirk Cousins
Yeah.
is a free agent. You can't trade a free
Yeah.
agent.
Well, and that, and like,
I'm talking about. You know what the fuck I'm talking about, Darren.
Like a sign and trade? Is that what you mean? Sign and trade?
Yep.
I mean,
Kirk and
look at
trade
in
him?
both these cases. Look at if you can't trade Kirk Cousins, he's a free agent. If they cut Russ, then they just eat 85 million. There's no, well, you know, I mean, so
Right.
D-Roy, if they cut Russ, I mean, Russ is going to make, I think next year 40
I
million
still,
from Denver.
that's my
Right?
bad.
They
I
cut
thought
him.
Kirk Cousins
So
was still under.
no, he's not
had
under
one more year to
contract.
go.
So if they cut Russ, if they just say, "Up, Russ, you know, let's ride without you," how much are you willing to pay Russ over the next 3 years for a contract? Let's say a 3-year contract. What would you think would be a fair price that he might come to Minnesota for to train Michael Penix or whoever you get in the second round?
If Minnesota
I
is
do.
No, I'm asking D-Roy.
I'd say, you know, like 10, 15 mil. I mean, he's on his
Exactly what I
way
was thinking.
on his way out of the league. I mean, what more else does he have to accomplish? He's already won a Super Bowl.
you know what I do? I give him 1 year deal, prove it, and if you can prove it after that 1 year deal, re-sign him. Period.
I give him
I
a
don't know,
2-year deal, $10 million.
Yep, 2 year.
Let a rookie sit behind him and learn the game. And
Michael
I-
Michael Penix right behind him.
But your owner and your GM over in Minnesota says Kirk Cousins is still there. Period.
But I mean, but
We don't know that for sure.
Russ, but that's because Russ has not been cut yet, right? You're not going to say that,
Right.
because Russ is still a member of Denver. So if I'm
True.
Quezzy,
But
why am I? I'm not going to say
the
anything
reason,
if I'm
but the
Quezzy. I have to
reason I
wait.
say that, the reason I say that, Ken, is look at the rocky relationship between him and Sean Payton that's transpired over the year. I
Yeah.
mean,
Past 2
John
years.
Elway has to figure that out. I mean,
But what I'm saying though, if I'm the Minnesota Vikings, of course right now I'm going to say Kirk Cousins is still my guy.
Well,
because Russ is still a Bronco. But if Russ is not a Bronco, hold on, if Russ is not a Bronco tomorrow, that may change the tone of that conversation or the tone of what Quezzy is saying. Because if Quezzy's going, well, let me see, I have to pay Kirk 18 or 22 or 30 or whatever it is. I think his value is over 30 million right now on Spotrac, 35. But I can go and I can pay Russ, 15 a year because he's making another 85 over the next 2 years from Denver. So I can go, Russ, look, you're making 85, so why don't we just make it an even 100? So now you're going to make $100 million over 2 years, right? The 15 from us, 85 from Denver. Why don't you come and win the North with us? Would Russ say no to that?
I don't think he would.
Well, that whole Denver thing was been jacked up since the previous regime coming in there because they thought they could land Aaron Rodgers over there in Denver. They didn't get it done, and then they had no choice to do damage control and get Russell Wilson over there instead of Aaron Rodgers. And then here comes Peyton and everything else like that. And this is where we're at today for the Denver Broncos.
Russ is going to have places to go because Minnesota is not going to be the only ones. Atlanta needs a quarterback. Maybe New Orleans if they get rid of Derek Carr. Atlanta's got more money to spend on Russell Wilson to go there.
Right.
Who's going to have a complete roster of young guys where Minnesota's in that transition of what they're going to do with the cap space in their roster. So he may look to go to Atlanta if they want to pursue that.
Ken, what do you think, brother?
Yeah, I could definitely see Russ going to Atlanta. We had already kind of talked about this on the morning show with my buddy, the Falcon fan Dom. But if Minnesota went and got him, it would make sense, and I wouldn't be against them getting him because I don't think Russell's the greatest quarterback out there. He's more than enough to get it done for you for a couple of years, but at least from what he's shown in Denver, he's lost a step or two.
Russell Wilson's going to be that type of person where wherever he goes, he needs to be a mentor to whoever's going to come behind him. Just like, the quarterbacks in Green Bay, the Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers behind him, Aaron Rodgers, you got Jordan Love. They're all mentors towards the guys behind him, and they should be learning behind them. And that would be Russell Wilson's role going forward.
And Russ going to Atlanta, that's an easier division to play in.
South is garbage.
The South is hot trash right now, and the Steelers. John Dorn says, "Hey, the Steelers need a quarterback because they've got Pickett, but Pickett's the only quarterback who was taken the first round on his year, and he was at 20s when they took him. Look, I don't think you give up on Pickett after 2 years. I think they're not going to cut Pickett. They're going to keep Pickett, but look at does Russell Wilson make sense for them too? Yeah, because once again, a guy who can mentor Pickett, kind of how Rodgers, or Kirk Cousins. But the problem is Russ is cheaper than Cousins. Doesn't have the injury issues as Cousins. He's more mobile than Cousins. He's actually won a Super Bowl, whereas Cousins has not. The other thing with Russ is he's a lot cheaper because Cousins wants $35 million. With Russ, I can pay him 15 or 20. I can pay him 15 or 20,
but
and get that.
Yeah, we got to take into the account though with the negative that's on Russell Wilson that Seattle and in Denver, the guys were saying that he did not fit in the locker room, and not only did he not fit, did he not even try? And especially in Seattle, they would say that there'd be rules for Russ and rules for the rest of the team. So any team that's bringing him in, you got to evaluate if you want that.
Do you think Russell Wilson is a problem child?
I don't know if he's necessarily a problem. It's just that he's such a different guy.
He's catered. That's what it is. It's catered.
He's used to having Pete Carroll there or somebody that did exactly what he wanted them to do and made everything Russell-centric.
So he could be a prima donna like Aaron Rodgers-esque, you know what I'm saying, is what you're saying?
Kind of. I don't think to the same degree, but I definitely get the feel from Russ, and it seems like the feel that's coming from the teammates is Russ almost has a holier-than-thou mentality, like, I'm just such a better person type of thing.
Yeah.
Well, come on. I mean, when you're married to Sierra.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. You're married to Sierra. Come on. You got a little room to play. I mean,
right.
The Russ situation is something we're obviously going to have to monitor within the division closely because, I mean, obviously he's not going to Detroit because Detroit can't figure out where the Hendon Hooker or Jared Goff and why they're Lions fans having that argument makes no sense to me. Chicago, we have our own quarterback thing, which we're not going to talk about today. We're going to let free agency start to roll out. Hold on. No, I'm not talking about Detroit's
problem with quarterbacks.
No, I'm not talking about that right now. Hold on. I'm making a larger point. I'm just saying as an example. So Detroit, they don't have the need for a quarterback, right? They got their own little thing, and we can talk about the Detroit controversy at a later date and time. The Bears have a similar kind of thing going on. Green Bay, you're good with Jordan Love. The only team that has a definite quarterback question mark right now is the Minnesota Vikings. Sure. So the Russell Wilson discussion is something that we're going to have to pay close attention to in terms of Minnesota, because even with all the pros and cons we've talked about, let's face it, if he goes to a team that has two stud wide receivers, not great O-line, but enough to keep him upright more times than not, Russell Wilson makes that team up there in Minnesota, prima donna or not, better. And now they go from an 8-win team to maybe a 10 or 11 team win, and you're talking about a division that I think next year, and theoretically, looking at the way it's all starting to play out, could have 4 teams that are 10-win teams, and you could be 10 or better wins, and you could be a 10-win team and be in the basement next year. That's how good our division is shaping up.
Listen, first off, I don't even want to address it, but Hendon Hooker and Jared Goff is not an issue right now. In fact, I still want to say Hendon Hooker is going to be used for trade bait, and he's going somewhere else because of the fact that Hendon Hooker is going to be almost 26 years old behind Jared Goff, and he has to do something with his career right now. So I wouldn't be surprised if Hendon Hooker's used for trade bait in order for Detroit to move up in the first round.
Man, but as Mike the Bear fan can tell you, or Bear Down Mike can tell you, because there's some couple Lions fans that the three of us know, and they're talking about this Hooker thing like it's got legs in Detroit. That there are a lot of Detroit fans. I've seen Detroit fans making comments like, "Start Hooker now. Goff is garbage. He can't win the big game." Blah blah blah.
I'm sorry, dude.
I'm
Go
not
ahead.
saying this.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Bro, I'm not saying this. This is guys from your fan base. I agree with you. I think Jared Goff is the guy in Detroit.
I'm sorry, dude. I keep interrupting you. Go ahead and finish, and I'll get back to you. Go ahead.
The last thing I was going to say, and then I'll give you the floor, is I think you extend Jared Goff. To me, this whole Hendon Hooker thing is garbage. I think you extend Goff. Go ahead.
Listen, I think you extend Goff. I say you give him 3 to 4 years, maybe. I don't know. He shouldn't be greedy. He should do a Tom Brady move, maybe take $29, $31 million a year, in my opinion. These Lions fans like Micro Mike and all these fucking rejects and retards on the F like that, they're fucking dumb as hell. Let me tell you something right now. Jared Goff, along with Dan Campbell and everyone else like that, went from a 3-win season to where they're right now in the NFC Championship game, losing to San Francisco because they didn't have a defense and they didn't know how to handle themselves in that second half versus San Francisco. Now all these guys don't. Oh, they're putting Hendon Hooker in and Jared Goff's bowling. What is Hendon Hooker? Hendon Hooker, okay, he was great in Tennessee. He was a Heisman candidate who blew his ACL out. But what has Hendon Hooker done in the NFL? He's not our answer right now. There's no proven statistics on him. And we haven't even seen that guy even take a snap, even in preseason or even at training camp. So all them idiots that the Detroit Lions fan base that are begging to put Hendon Hooker in versus Jared Goff need to shut the fuck up and realize, we have a great quarterback right now. He just can't throw the deep ball, connect with J-Mo, and that's the biggest problem. Hendon Hooker does have an arm on him, and he could connect with J-Mo, but is that all I can do, or is not all I can do? But he's 26 years old, sitting behind Jared Goff right now. So what do? Do you use him as trade bait and try to go with someone younger? Yeah, it was a good idea for Detroit to pick him up with that ACL, just like with J-Mo, ACL issues and everything like that. But at the end of the day, what's the smarter decision? I see Detroit using Hendon Hooker as trade bait and getting a younger QB maybe in the 5th or 6th round.
And that that could be a very good take. And on that take, guys, I think we're about running out of time, so I don't want to start into a new topic. But let's next week, we'll talk about some more of these quarterback free agency issues. Free agency is the topic right now for probably the next couple weeks because the draft is 2 months away. Free agency starts the 15th. We're going to see a lot more free agent news probably happening this week and the next week. But every day, don't forget, every morning, folks, don't forget Ken and Ken in the morning. That's on our Facebook and our YouTube channels. We will be right back here tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. on Roku, Facebook, and YouTube for another edition of Halas Hall. For everyone on the panel and for our producer extraordinaire, Mike the Bear fan, want to give everyone a
Packers suck.
And a
Wink.
Bears. Boy.
Love it.
Bears. See you tomorrow.
Welcome to Halas Hall Report, live every Saturday night at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time and Sunday mornings at 11:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. Live talking Chicago Bears football with Mike the Bear fan. And your host, Ken Dobb. Also on the panel, we have the football analyst, Woody, who is named for the Woody wrap-up on game days. Next on the panel, we have Bear Down Mike. He is the youngest, but don't be fooled. This guy knows this Bear squad. He can bring a different insight. Halas Hall Report breaks down the Chicago Bears team all year long, from the offseason through the draft. Also, the legend of tailgating, Billy Defense Flores, joins the crew live at 1st and 10 tailgating. You can find him at all home games at Soldiers Field. Also, the Bear fan who has been here since the first year of Halas Hall Report, welcome Bear fan Dan, where he is known for studs and duds after every game. You can find them on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Roku if you have a TV. They are all over social media. You won't find no better sources for Chicago Bears news like injury reports, team updates for breaking news for all the good and the bad the team does. Halas Hall Report will be live for the 6th season, and they are teaming up with the best sports